WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Communications Channel 16 proudly present the We Should Know Show, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative. Now, here's your host, J.W. Simmons, as we consider closely what we should know.
Welcome back, folks. We Should Know is on there. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host. We're talking about agriculture today, which everybody is familiar with anywhere in North Carolina, particularly in the eastern part of the state. Ag is everywhere as well as all over the country. And one of the things we wanted to kind of get into today as somewhat of a focus point is the whole idea of safety. And who knows better about that than the Cooperative Extension folks. And one of those people is Zach Parker. Zach, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you.
And I just was looking at your background. Not only are you an extension agent, graduate of NC State, but you grew up in Duplin County and Wallace area down there, and you grew up on a farm.
Yes, sir. Sure did. I kind of got the experience of the bigger farms and the smaller farms. My parents kind of had their own separate operation. We had 4 chicken houses growing up, so that's what I did. Mm-hmm. And then my grandparents, they have a grain buying operation, hog houses, chicken houses, that kind of thing.
When did you look at agriculture? Can you just reflect back with me for a moment? When you were growing up on the farm, was there a time in your years as you were graduating from high school, as you were looking at college, at what point did you decide, I want to do something with agriculture? Because before we came on air this morning, you and I were talking about how many people are just kind of moving away from ag. What kind of galvanized this for you to say this is something I want to be associated with for a career?
Mm-hmm. I really don't know if there was one specific event. I think it's something that's always kind of been in my mind, that I just wanted to be in agriculture, whether I was operating my own farm or whether I was working with farmers as I'm doing now. I just enjoyed agriculture throughout my life. I enjoyed my time on the farm. I just more so love being outside than anything. So I think that played a big part in it, in my decision. It got to the point where in high school, the only college I even applied for was NC State, and I'm glad I got it, because otherwise I might have been out.
Yeah. But so when you started NC State, you were thinking some field of ag is what I want to end up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had thought some kind of ag business, something of that nature.
I think ag, when I look at it, you have to have a special feel for it. And I think your experience on the farm, it sounds like, was a good experience. You enjoyed that kind of outside activity, as the old saying goes, kind of elbows and knuckles kind of thing.
Exactly.
So one of the things I wanted to make sure folks understood about you too, your kind of official title is field crop agent. Mm-hmm. Tell us what field crop agent is, what that means, and not only does the population as a whole need to know, but folks that are actually growing stuff not only need to know your name, but need to know the things you can bring to help them.
Yep, exactly. And as far as field crops agent goes, I cover your commodity crops. I cover cotton, tobacco, peanuts, your corn, your wheat, soybeans, and other small grains. I don't cover your vegetable crops. That's more of the horticultural side of things. So your commodity crops, things that you see being shipped around in these transfer trucks, that's what I cover. Your grains, your fibers, and then your more specialized things like tobacco and peanuts.
We've got some listeners and viewers in Duplin County, so I'm sure you probably hear from a lot of our conversation. Well, I hope you do anyway.
Yep.
And I think when I think about what you're just talking about, a lot of those crops are grown here, right in this area, are the major producers in the state for a lot of those. You and I had mentioned off air about sweet potatoes and tobacco being 2 of those.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're huge. I want to say Sampson and Duplin kind of go back and forth between the top spot every year when it comes to sweet potatoes, at least. Hogs is the same way. I think Duplin's edging out Sampson just a little bit at this point, but I'm not exactly for sure on that. So.
Is there a possibility, and I'm thinking in terms, you mentioned it, you grew up with chicken houses. Well, that industry along with hogs had started out years back when, different people was involved in this process, the way they were put together. Is there a movement, or do you see a movement toward a lot of the field crops now being one of those things where farmers are coming together and they've got a source that they can use to make sure that they can move their product, because the days of the face and pepper market is pretty much gone?
You can see that some in cotton specifically is the example that I can think of. Is they have co-ops that run the cotton gins, and they have, they hire their staff to market the cotton. As far as corn, wheat, soybeans, things like that, it's a futures market. It's the commodity market, federal level. So you're kind of at the mercy of the market with those more so than anything.
I want to kind of drill in on one of the key topics I wanted to talk to you about today. And I know you've done a lot of research and seen a lot of things. I want to zero in on that whole area of safety and farm safety. And a lot of folks may think, well, I don't want to listen to the rest of it because I don't farm. But explain a little bit about farm safety and how it affects everybody, no matter what you do. You could be a medical doctor, you could be a teacher, you could be somebody that lives here and travels somewhere else to work. But the safety issue for agriculture, particularly at this time of the year, from what I can read, is very crucial, and it peaks. Let's get into that discussion, and we'll go ahead and kind of break that open this first segment.
I think first and foremost, if you're a resident of Sampson or Duplin counties, you've seen a tractor on the road at least once.
And Bladen,
anywhere in the southeast, really. But you've seen a tractor on the roadways. You see food in the grocery stores. You're involved in agriculture, whether you like it or not. And safety is pretty all encompassing whenever it comes to agriculture safety, just because it is so prevalent. And I've written a few articles at this point on highway safety. When it comes to large equipment, it's slow moving, it's big, it takes up the whole roadway. Just have some patience is my main thing. Speaking to drivers in particular.
Yeah, I read the article you did on a lot of the bigger equipment. When people see that, and just kind of walk us through this process, when people see those long lines of traffic maybe, and a vehicle or of equipment or of some kind is on the road, we're in a society now, Zach, as you know, it's like there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, we've got something now that used to be never heard of. It's called road rage, and people trying to get around a car in front of them. They leave 10 minutes late and they're trying to make up that time on the road, and they literally get angry. Do we need to kind of dial that down and kind of help us understand from your perspective what you want folks to know and their expectation? Because if you decide you're going to pass 20 cars on the road because there's a huge combine in front of you, that might not be a good decision.
No, definitely not. I'm guilty of road rage myself. I get it from both sides of the family. My mom and my dad both had it, so I got a double shot of it. So I get it. I get it entirely. But ultimately, you just have to take a step back. You have to realize that farmer's just trying to get to work too. Yeah, that's his livelihood. That's their livelihood. It's not all about you.
Yeah.
When you're on the highway, you're sharing the roadway with everybody else that's on it, and ultimately, they're just trying to get to where they need to go.
When I look at that and I think about instances, and this is just one of the safety things that we're going to talk about, but it seems that more folks are familiar with that and they feel a personal sense about that, but they really don't understand. And I'm sure you've had people talk to you too, and they say, well, look, we pay taxes too. This person shouldn't take the road up. But I find myself, and maybe it's because I'm just, I guess, more closer to ag, but I usually wave at whoever it is and try to stay out of the way and that kind of thing. But does the folks in agriculture that's driving those combines, I've noticed that they try, if they see traffic behind them, they'll try to find a place to pull off. Is that kind of standard operation?
Anywhere that they can find a spot to pull over. Sometimes it's just simply not possible. You know, if you've got mailboxes on both sides of the roads, there's really nowhere you can go. And ultimately, around this area at least, you know, they're not traveling very far. They'll be off the highway in a few minutes. Just, you know, be patient if you're behind them. That's the only thing I can really think to say about it.
Is there any protocols out there or operational requirements for folks that are operating, particularly some of the bigger equipment? Or, you know, can somebody just say, well, I'm going to show you where forward is and reverse and how, and here's the steering wheel. If there is a steering wheel, here's the steering wheel. Is there some requirements on any of that equipment?
As far as your tractors, your combines and things like that go, not really. It's more comes with experience. And a lot of these farmers have been running the same machine for the past decade, something like that, or something similar to that for as long as they've been alive, as long as they've been farming. It just comes with years and years of experience. They're pretty much self-taught when it comes to those types of machineries. As far as your big tractor trailer trucks, of course, people have CDLs or Class A licenses. So there's a little bit more training that goes into that. But as far as your combines, your other machinery goes, not really formal, no. They've been in it long enough. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, I want to kind of maybe put this teaser out, and maybe you can explain this to us. What would you consider as one of the most dangerous pieces of equipment that is being operated on the public highways today? Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Zach Parker, Extension Agent right here in Sampson County, about equipment and safety during farming season. Stay tuned.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. J.W. Simmons here. The name of the show is We Should Know. We're talking about agriculture today, something that is near and close to everyone. And we're talking with Zach Parker with Corporate Extension right out of the office here in Clinton. It covers a pretty large area. Zach, you cover Sampson County, grew up in Duplin County. You probably got associates and friends in Bladen County, and all of those counties are viewers and listeners on the show. And we've got people in about 8 counties that, believe it or not, pick up the show. But all of them have something in common, and they have met it. They've been behind it, and it's equipment, agriculture equipment on the road.
Yep.
In your mind, give us an idea of the kinds of equipment that requires the most consideration for folks on the roadways today. And I know there may be several, but Some of them are large, some may be small, but still they require you to give distance. Just talk to us about that.
I would probably lean more towards your larger equipment need more consideration. I mean, small equipment, it generally doesn't take up as much space on the roadways. You know, you can pass it about like you're passing a car in most instances. I'd say your combines, they're pretty wide machines. They take up a lot of the roadways, and like we were saying in the last segment, they, the farmers will always try and get over whenever they can, but that's something that's going to take up a lot of your space. The sprayers, the big sprayers, like you can see around, some days they travel a little bit faster, but they're also pretty dangerous themselves. The booms that they keep folded in, they can kind of open up, and that makes for a dangerous situation. I've heard of it happening a few times. I haven't experienced that myself, thank goodness. But I would say the larger the equipment, the more caution you kind of need to use with it. That's a general rule of thumb.
One of the articles that I read talked about the most common cause of death in farm accidents were tractor rollovers. Do we see a lot of that in this area? And if we do, kind of give us an idea of what kind of tractor that may be, because some of the tractors are so large today. I tell people I've seen tractors, and I think they probably run anywhere from 200,000 up, but we're talking big pieces of equipment.
I would say that's probably at the opposite end of the opposite end of the spectrum there with the smaller tractors. You know, people use the side brush mowers to mow their ditches around their field, things like that. And that's where I've heard of a lot of the rollovers. Just in my personal experiences, they'll go a little bit too close, really hit a washout, and next thing you know, they're upside down in the ditch. And it's more dangerous when it comes to a tractor without a cab, because they have made some pretty good strides in safety with the rollover protection system, with a cab or a tractor that has a bar that comes up and protects the seating area. But your older tractors that may not have that bar over there, that just don't have a cab, that's going to be the ones that are a little bit more deadly in that scenario.
Are a lot of the newer tractors now, do they come with seat belts and those kinds of things?
Yep, a lot of them do. Your older ones, they didn't know about seatbelts at that point. They didn't even have them in cars at that point. So, but the newer tractors, they do have seatbelts. I'm guilty. I don't think I've ever worn one in a tractor, but
I didn't know that until I read it. They had, some of them had seatbelts on. I thought, well, that was interesting.
Yep, they have them. They're in there.
Yeah.
They're not used. They're probably the least used thing in a tractor. But in all reality, they will keep you safe. I'm a firm believer in seatbelts, especially in cars.
Yeah. When we look at these kinds of things and we think about it, is this on the list of priorities for the actual growers? Because I know one of the things they're looking at and making sure they got the right land, that they got the right seed, all of this other stuff is on their minds. Is there a process that you work with them on? And for example, if you go to a farm and you see something, do you feel comfortable saying, hey, that might be an issue? And do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most common thing that I have seen is more than likely going to be your PTO shafts that are exposed. Most of the newer ones come with the cover, like a plastic sleeve that goes over it.
Now let's explain, because there's people about, when you said PTO shaft, I know exactly what you're talking about, but there's a lot of people out there thinking, well, what is that thing? That's something that hooks to a tractor and it actually turns at so many RPMs.
Yep.
So that would be used in what kind of environment? A lot of environments, I'm sure, but just kind of give us an example.
Any kind of implement that you're hooking up to, really, like your bush hog, your tiller, things like that, things that need power from the tractor in order to rotate.
Grain augers.
Yeah, absolutely. Grain augers as well. But if I'd seen one of those that just doesn't have the plastic sleeve, or it's a little cracked up and things like that, it just poses more of a threat. I just say, hey, be careful around that one. I hope you don't I hope you don't like get in an incident with that.
Well, even clothing sometimes can get caught in those things, and you get pulled into it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've heard that multiple times. The hooded sweatshirts with the strings that hang down, those are number one.
Ideal way to get your head cracked.
Absolutely. And if you have long hair, it's one more thing. If you have long hair, if you're anywhere around the PTO shaft, please put it up. I know there's some women in agriculture that have some longer hair, so please just put it up.
Well, and a lot of the things that we're talking about, I know that the emergency responders in the county have been trained to be able to deal with the results of those kinds of accidents. So number one, we know they're happening all around us. The fire departments, the emergency medical responders, they're very aware of it because they go through training to deal with that. Farm accident courses. In fact, some of them will set up scenarios and so they'll know how to get to it. Is getting to an accident also a problem for emergency responders?
It absolutely could be. I mean, if you get caught up in your combine somewhere at the backside of a field, you can't get to your cell phone and you're by yourself. And a lot of farmers, it is a self, like a one person operation. They're running this by themselves a lot of the times. They don't have huge crews that go out there and help them. If you're at the back of your field somewhere that's kind of out of sight of the road, there's fields off in the woods, places around. You could absolutely be in a lot of trouble if you can't get some kind of assistance there. So I think that needs to be kind of taken into consideration when something breaks down and you're just wanting to get back operating. Take a second, say, what if something goes wrong? Just be prepared. That
idea of looking at it from the operator's perspective, sitting in the seat on that particular piece of equipment. And we just kind of brushed over it a while ago, but there's not really a practical, quote, lesson plan or course because from what I can understand, each piece of equipment is unique. And you just talked about the thing you hook up to the back of your tractor and it's spinning. Well, it could be, as you said, a bush hog. It could be whatever. Are there particular pieces of equipment that have more hazardous attachments? Because we primarily been talking about equipment that's moving forward or backward, but the equipment has attachments. Does that make a big difference?
It can. I'd say err on the side of caution, anything that has blades. So like your hay, cutters, your sickle bar mowers, things like that, bush hogs, really any implement that spins has potential to be dangerous, I would think. And then some are more safe, your spreaders and things like that, because it's more contained.
There's the other thing, and again, we get a lot of information out there, but there's also this thing that affects our senses. One of them we've talked about is being able to visually see farm equipment, being able to know this is there. The other thing is the auditable piece. That part, oftentimes, if you're around farm equipment, you may try to make your presence known by making a noise, but that equipment is so loud, that person on that equipment highly likely will not be able to hear you.
Right. That is absolutely correct. I've been in several tractors. If someone were to blow the horn back behind me, especially if you're pulling some kind of implement, like you're pulling a disc or a cultivator or something, they're so far behind you that you're not going to be able to hear them on the roadways. Even if they're honking at you, laying on the horn, you can't hear them. Because the tractor, especially on the roadways too, you've got the tire noise. And then you've got the engine turned up as high as it'll go, trying to get to where you're going, and trying to stay out of the way of traffic. You just got to be more vigilant if you're the operator of that equipment. And as the driver, someone that's following this piece of equipment, just know that they probably can't hear you, but they're looking for you.
And that's also important if you happen to decide, well, you're out one day and you're going, and I saw say you see a friend of yours and you want to talk to him, and you make the assumption, well, you pulled over and he should be able to see me, and all of a sudden you're going to get out and he really don't see you. You need to make sure from your perspective as an outsider to that equipment that he does see you before you attempt to approach.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen that so many times in the literature where there's those kinds of things that happen. I want to kind of, when we come back from this break, get into the area that a lot of folks may not think about. But as I recall, I was informed that Farm Bureau is doing a study on equipment and power lines and the impact that has. And that also results into the death and injury of people in agriculture. Big deal. A lot of folks is talking about it. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking about accidents, agriculture, and how you may be involved in it. We'll be back in a moment.
Computer viruses, malware, and ransomware are out there. They're dangerous, and they can steal your identity and damage your equipment. Star Communications is now offering Protect IQ. The service adds an extra layer of protection to every device connected to your network, working quietly in the background. Star can help you protect yourself from the inside out with Protect IQ. Call Star today and take advantage of this free service when you sign up for whole home Wi-Fi with Star Communications.
How can your friend save you money? It's easy. Refer a relative, coworker, neighbor, or friend to Star Communications. Friend signs up for high-speed internet service. Friend's new account is confirmed. Friend gives your name to our service representative as the one who referred them to Star. You receive a $30 internet credit. It's just that simple. And even better, receive a $30 internet credit for every referral that results in a new confirmed account. High-speed internet from Star Communications. Refer a friend today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're talking today about ag. The name of the show is We Should Know. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host, and we're speaking with somebody with corporate extension here by the name of Zach Parker. Zach, you've been doing this for a few years now, and we're talking about accidents. One report in North Carolina, $187,000. There was a violation, a labor violation after death of a worker. That's right here in North Carolina. We're talking about thousands of people every year that's injured or killed as a result of accidents with farm workers. Let's get back to that. When you walk out on a daily basis or a weekly basis, just for a moment reflect and think about some things that maybe you've seen that you call to people's attention that may be a way that people could be injured or they could be hurt. And there's so many of them, we can't chronicleize every one of them in a short show like this, but at the same time, I think through your eyes is what I want to really see, and I want folks listening and watching to see through your eyes what you see on a daily basis, because I don't know anybody is on more farms in one day than you are.
Well, first I'd start off by just saying that agriculture and farming in general is a pretty dangerous profession. You're working with big machinery, and inherently you're going to have some risk with that. If you're going on the roadways at all, you've got risk in driving. Everybody that gets up and drives their car in the morning, there's a risk that you could get into an accident. One of my friends just last week actually got into an accident. But going around different farms, you can see there's some situations that seem so everyday, so mundane, that could turn dangerous in just a split second. Let's say that, it's planting season right now. There's a lot of people that's out there doing, planting their soybeans if it's dry enough. But, you step off your tractor for just a minute to go and check one of the planters, and let's say you didn't pull it out of gear, and that's how you end up, getting in the way of your planter, and you end up getting run over. It's the small things, it's the details, and people sometimes don't think about the details. The details for what could potentially be dangerous.
There's a subject that's come up in some articles and so forth, and I know Extension's got some folks that work very closely with a lot of the farm labor workers that comes into the country with green card holders that are here legally. I'm not saying I know anything about who is illegal or not legal, but I'm just saying that I've been told by farmers, if it were not for those folks, they probably wouldn't be able to farm.
Yeah.
So with all of those folks there, is there, in your opinion, enough interaction about safety, and is a barrier for explaining the importance of safety a problem for workers coming in, particularly for some of these workers that, they may be brought in on a bus and put out and do this. Is there actual short sessions to tell them about safety?
Absolutely. I think Cooperative Extension has done a fantastic job of that, especially in this area. I know we just got a new employee at the office. Her name's Stephanie. She does the farm worker training, and it's exactly what you're describing. It's the H-2A laborers that come in. She speaks Spanish a little bit better than I do, so she can, exactly. So she can come in and she can teach them, safety on equipment, safety on, pesticides, things of that nature. And she does a fantastic job with that.
And we've got probably in this county and Sampson, Bladen, Duplin, surrounding counties, probably more of that kind of worker in the field than I would guess probably in any other part of the state. And again, that's a guess. I'm not basing that on literature. I'm just wondering what's your sense on that?
I think it's definitely possible. I think that there are some H-2A workers that we have here, and that I kind of saw back when I was in Wake County for a couple of years. They would work the summer seasons kind of in the tobacco, in the vegetable crops, and sweet potatoes, and then they would move to another farm out in the western part of the state to work in Christmas trees. They're working here, I think it's 9 months out of the year. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And then they go back to their homes for 3 years, and then they start the cycle over again. But they're a massive part of our labor force in agriculture. And I dare say you're right. I don't know if we could do it without them.
The tobacco crops that we see in the field today and the laborers that do that is a lot less intense in volume than historically some of us may remember tobacco, because a lot of that has become mechanical in its operation. And what does that mean as far as safety? Because those mechanical harvesters of tobacco is also something that you got huge moving parts in different places.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you've ever seen one of the Granville strippers running through the field, it's something amazing to watch. And like you said, there is a lot of hazards when it comes to that, because first of all, the cab of it is, you're high up the ground. That's your first danger right there, is possibly potentially falling off or getting knocked off of it. And there's a lot of moving parts. The way that they work is they're taking the back of the leaves off of the stalks, and then they're bringing them up into the machine itself. So there's a lot of inherent danger with some of those machines.
We alluded to when we went to break, Zach, about studies being done as we sit here today about the number of deaths and major accidents involved with power lines and farm equipment. And what I understand about that is because of something you alluded to, a lot of the farm equipment, the way it's produced, can cause 15, 18 foot in the air booms and this kind of thing. And if that hits one of these power lines, we're talking a major electrical volt that could literally not only kill somebody on that equipment, but people standing in a closed area. It's almost like an electrical bomb goes off. Explain how farmers are looking at that, and do you actually go out and talk to farmers about that danger?
I actually know someone who's gotten some booms tangled in some power lines. Guy that used to work for my granddad. He was spraying this field, just got to the end of it. It was close to the highway. There was power lines right there. He just decided to start folding the booms up. Next thing you know, he's fried the entire computer system in it. And I think the power lines, they'll surge 3 times. And thankfully, he didn't get out before it had finished its surging. Once it surges that 3rd time, it'll shut that section down. That's a safety feature that they have in some of the bigger like power lines and the substations. But you could see whenever you went out to the sprayer, you could see where the electricity was just arcing from the metal rim onto the ground, jumping over the rubber tires. It just...
Thank God it was grounded.
Yep.
Because that's probably what saved it.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have a lot of equipment out there now that has that potential to hit power lines? Is that an increasing concern? And as we talked about, I think Farm Bureau, from what I understand, is doing a study on it now.
Mm-hmm. I'd say for the most part, you run the most risk with the sprayers. They've got you can have some that's got 120-foot booms on them. If you fold those up in the wrong section of the field, you might have an issue with potentially clipping a power line. As far as some of the other ones go, I think the power companies have done a pretty good job of getting the lines high enough.
I think they're like a requirement of something like 18 feet in the air, which is, you would think, is a pretty good ways up. But at the same time, if you got a boom or some of these high riding operations, it doesn't take much to, you're 20 feet to start with.
Yeah. Exactly right. I'd still say the sprayers are probably your most prone to this happening. And it's only when you're implementing your booms and when you're folding them back in. I'd say your combines, most of them are under 18 feet tall. Most of the time. I think you have to be under a certain height to be able to move it down the highway at least. So I think the sprayers would be your biggest risk of tangling it with any kind of power lines.
You mentioned on a lot of the equipment that's operated today, particularly if it's trucks and the larger trucks, is required CDL licensing and those kinds of things. And then I think about sometimes the other equipment. Do you see that going beyond the CDLs? Is there other things that you see would be important to make sure that folks understand, or some kind of check-off list or something of that nature? Is that a troubled area to talk about?
I don't know. I really don't know if there's...
Because I'm sure farmers don't want to get into having regulations on everything, but at the same time, I guess my question is that something that needs to be done?
Gotcha. I don't know if it's particularly a need. I think it's more just awareness, more so than regulation, would be more helpful in that kind of scenario. I don't think that there needs to be a licensure requirement in order to move a tractor down the road. You got a driver's license. That should be all you need.
And then the on-the-job training.
And then exactly, on-the-job training. Everybody, I started out driving a tractor when I was 5 years old. So everybody's had a lifetime of experience driving a tractor. They know what they're doing for the most part. They're on the roadways.
When we come back from this break, I want to kind of go into some of those new areas of equipment that's out there that we haven't faced before, and discuss some of the new possibilities for danger for farm accidents. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. We're coming up on the last part of the show.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
You're out for an evening on the town. Finally a chance to relax and forget that you left your front door completely unlocked. Fortunately, you just installed a security system from Star Communications. With just your cell phone, you can check on your house, lock it down, light it up, and get back to relaxing.
You forgot to put Buster in his crate.
Unfortunately, we can't help with that. Security and automation from Star Communications. Call today to find out more.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. J.W. Simmons here, your host. The name of the show is We Should Know. We come to you each and every week on Tuesdays. Star Communications Channel 16. We're simulcast on WCLN Radio as well. There's a replay at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, each week of the show. We appreciate your input, your commentary, both in person as well as your emails to weshouldknow.edu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknow.edu@gmail.com. You can drop us a card or a letter or a comment or suggestion for a show if you'd like to. Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. That's Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina 28329 is the zip code for the post office box. We're talking about safety today. We're talking about safety on farms, roads, agricultural safety as a whole. We're talking with Zach Parker. Zach, thank you again for being with us. We're coming up on the last part of the show today. This particular subject is something you see on a regular basis. You're a crop field agent, which means you're in the field a lot. You see this a lot. I want to step into that world of new technologies that continues to grow with agriculture. One of these I was made aware of a while back as we looked at we hadn't done it yet, but even looking at doing a show on this piece of equipment. And it's the drone technology that's being used now by farmers in the field. Let's talk a bit about that as it relates to the application of drones. Is that something you see that's going to expand? What kind of requirements does a farmer have if he's using a drone or if hiring somebody else to use a drone? Are there safety requirements and training that they must have?
Right. When it comes to the drones and their potential in agriculture, I see no limits as far as it goes right now. There's already remote sensing drones. There's different cameras you can have on your imaging drones. You can run it through what NC State is kind of looking into, artificial intelligence system where they can take the drone images and differentiate your weeds from your crops and crop health and what the color of your crop leaves say about your crop health, things of that nature. I can't get into too much of it because I don't know all of it, but I will kind of just give you a little teaser there. When it comes to the coolest drones that I can think of at the moment are the ones that can spray over the top of your crops. The spray drones are just fascinating to me personally. And as far as any regulations that are attached to them, if you have an imaging drone, you need to have a drone license from the FAA. Same with the spray drone. The spray drone has another licensure that you have to get as far as applying pesticides. You'd have to get your aerial applicator pesticide license as well.
Does these drones, when you're looking at them size-wise, I'm just trying to visualize the potential of hazard, because a drone that's carrying chemicals, you're adding weight to it. So does that mean that drone has got to be even more powerful, larger battery storage, takeoff, landing, different than a drone that you sit on the ground and it goes just straight up? Does it take off like a airplane or what?
No, they're all vertical takeoff and landing that I've seen. And when you're talking about size, your imaging drones could be as small as, maybe 8 inches long. Most of them have 4 propeller blades, one at each corner, and they can fly, your entire field in probably 30 minutes or so, depending on your acreage. I've seen one about that size fly our peanut plot last year. It was about, I think it was 8-10 acres, something like that. It flew it in about 25 minutes. And all program, no manual input to it besides the takeoff command. When it goes to the sprayer drones, you're absolutely right. They have to be a little bit more hefty to handle the load. One that I've looked at has a tank that you can change in and out that carries chemicals to the field. And the tank itself weighs about 80 pounds. So it's got to be able to lift and hover and move 80 pounds worth of liquid. And I think that one had 8 propellers. The 8 propellers were the propellers itself were probably a foot to 16 inches each. It's pretty sizable, but it folds the arms fold in where it'll fit in the back of a pickup truck and in the back of a trailer. So it's a really cool design when it comes to some of the spray drones.
So I remember over the years, it's been fascinating to watch an airplane that they use, and these crop dusters come in, just watching the acrobatics of the airplane. Is that going to reduce the need of having more airplanes in the air? Is there a cost efficient ratio there that says, well, the drone is actually better for us to use simply because it costs less, it's more maneuverable, and again, if you've got all the license to operate one of those things, do you see more and more of those in the air? And is there a safety issue? For example, if there's a mechanical failure, is there a possibility that could impact somebody by crashing? So
it is certainly possible that it could reduce the number of airplane aerial applicators eventually. I don't see it happening anytime soon. Just because the drone technology that we have right now, you've got to change your batteries so often to get over larger acreage, that I think it would be more practical to hire someone with an airplane to come in and do it. If you're spraying, you're top dressing 1,000 acres of corn.
Yeah.
It could take you a day or two with an airplane, whereas it might take you a week with a drone. Just because they can't fly as fast. They'll eventually get the job done. Don't get me wrong, but they just, if time is of the essence, I think the airplane would be the better route to go.
When we look at accidents and related issue, I'm kind of switching gears now. With farm and farming, we see a lot of what is referred to as confined space accidents, and that includes everything from grain silos, running around to chicken and hog production. And is that something that you see the statistics coming down on? Is that things that needs to be looked at closer, in your opinion?
I don't know if I could see the statistics coming down on it as much. There are safety features in place when it comes to augers and things like that. But ultimately, what I think of when I think of, a farmer being in a confined space is they're fixing something. Maybe a bearing went out and they're trying to replace it. And all of a sudden, this, whatever you're working on comes to life, and then you're in a bad situation. And even with all the safety features that they have, there's no way that you could prevent an accident from happening, because accidents they do happen, especially when you're making a repair.
When we think about repairs, is a lot of the repairs that's being done, does it come down to the fact that you just simply can't predict what a piece of equipment that you're using to do the repair or the equipment you're working on, you can't have a total, complete prediction of what that equipment's going to do?
That's some of it. I think that I think that people can kind of look over some of the safety measures that they should be taking. I think that's more of what it is. The machinery itself, as long as it is turned completely off and it's it's sitting on flat ground, the brakes are locked. It's not going to be moving a whole lot. Right. When people get in a rush, they might leave something running. Let's say they're going to clear a blockage in their the corn head in their combine, and they don't turn it off. Then that could potentially create a really big issue because it's constantly spinning.
We're talking something 20, 30 foot across,
possibly bigger.
And I want to hit these subjects real quick. This is coming up this September. Every year is designated as National Farm Safety and Health Week. This year, it's coming up in September. Again, I said to you, I'd like to see it in the spring, but it comes up in September 2024. Here's some of the subjects they're going to be covering. It starts the 16th. There is equipment and rural roadway safety. We talked about that. Health and wellness. That's the issue that a lot of folks deal with, whether it relates to chemicals or whatever is happening on the farm, the personal health. The other thing is generations of farming. We didn't get into that. That's a whole nother subject, but farming is being challenged now. Who's going to keep doing it? Is it moving to corporate? Is it going to stay with families? The other thing is confined spaces. The other idea is this reporting of ag injuries. Is there a gap there that maybe we're not hearing about all the injuries? There's a lot maybe that happens that just don't get reported.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've heard from some nurses that I know and some more medical professionals, if a farmer's coming into the hospital, it's because he's about half dead. Yeah, exactly. They don't like to do it. They've been in a serious accident if they call ahead.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just I think it's a mindset. It's how I was raised. It's how a lot of people were raised. If you get hurt, you get scraped, cut up a little bit, rub some dirt in it, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and you deal with it.
Exactly, deal with it on your own.
We haven't covered a lot. We have covered a lot. There's a lot still to be talked about with it. Again, I want to thank you for being with us today and coming in and talking about some of these things. Sir. The big thing is children around equipment. Not a good thing, especially smaller children. So we're going to take it from there. Again, thank you, Zach, for coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Zach Parker. We thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.